So that's the app I started with. And initially it was just like ETFs and like really beginner stuff. And then obviously I did more research, I read more books and stuff like that. So I think with anyone who's a complete beginner and has no clue, I would say, start with one of these apps which are geared towards beginners because they have like zero fees and stuff.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Designer Future podcast. I've got Anna on today. Anna, please just go ahead and introduce yourself for me.
Hiya. So I'm Anna and I run a YouTube channel called Pandaboss about personal finance and beginners investing. And I kind of call it just bossing life. I do certain content about like careers and, doing well in life generally. But the primary focus is personal finance.
Love that. So just for the people watching and listening that's never been on a channel before, one, how long have you been doing it? And two, who's your ideal audience?
Sure. So I started the channel back in November last year, but although it came from a good place of like, I really want to help people, I wasn't really giving it the time that I needed to. So between November and April, I think I made about 4 videos. And obviously that's not a great way to grow. But then lockdown came along and I had nothing better to do. So I was like, right, let me try and focus on creating content now. So basically actually doing it properly from April. So that's been really good. And in terms of ideal audience, predominantly sort of people in their maybe 20s and 30s, probably more so towards the 20s, who maybe are in financial difficulty or just want to plan ahead with their finances, and also people who are looking to be financially independent. So a big thing at the moment is the FIRE movement, so financial independence, retiring early. I'm focusing quite a lot on the financial independence. So there's a lot of criticism of the retire early elements of the FIRE movement. But it's not about that for me. It's not about once I reach that number just sitting at home doing nothing. It's just about having the choice.
Sure.
So yeah, the kind of people who are interested in that, basically.
Amazing. And what made you get into it? Obviously, you've clearly got a passion for finance and creating content, but how comes YouTube? Because I think, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure I found you initially on Instagram and then checked out your YouTube channel. So I love the content you're creating on Instagram, put it that way.
Thank you. So I decided to do it because, well, actually, let's just backtrack. So the YouTube came first before the Instagram.
Awesome.
And I felt like it was the best way to get across all the kind of stuff that I wanted to talk about. It's really difficult, I think, on Instagram to make content that goes really into depth on stuff. And the reason I wanted to do the channel is because I was talking a lot with people in my 0 hours job. So once I moved away from the finance world and into like the hospitality sector, which was my sort of part-time job that I was doing to get out of debt, and I started talking to people and I couldn't believe how useful they were finding the things I was saying. And they were like really thankful for the advice I was giving them on like what they should do with, their financial situations. And it made me realize that actually maybe I should share some of my knowledge with others, that they would find it useful, because previously I hadn't really thought about it in that way because I was surrounded by people who were quite financially savvy. So it never really crossed my mind. So that's kind of where the inspiration came from.
Amazing. And just to sort of pick your brain while you're on that topic, is there someone or something that has helped you with your like financial literacy? Has there been like a particular person that sort of like I say inspired you, but even like just someone you've watched consistently that you watch in every single video because of what they say?
So the answer to your second question is yes, there are definitely people who I watch like every video and I learn so much from. So I'll tell you who they are in a second if you're interested. But with regards to the first point, I think it's more just the fact that I'm an accountant. So I've always sort of been good with like logic and numbers. And because I went through the 4 painful years of training to be an accountant, I think a lot of the financial literacy came from that.
Yeah, sure.
But I think a lot of the kind of being, I guess, savvy in personal finance came then from the financial movement on YouTube, actually. So it was when I started watching YouTube videos where I realized, oh, look, this FIRE movement thing, this is actually great. Why am I not doing this? Why am I still in debt? Why am I still not investing? And the people who initially got me through that, there were 3 channels that I started watching. They were a channel called Our Rich Journey. It's a couple who have now retired early in Portugal. The Humble Penny, who again, they are a couple and they make videos about finance and financial independence and investing in finance. And Mama Furfa, who is in Scotland, and she, sort of like me, is a woman in finance, and she makes great content. And I always say to her, she's been one of the original sort of UK finance YouTubers. So yeah, those 3 were like my triangle that got me into the whole aspect of financial independence and investing and really taking care of my own finances.
Amazing. And the reason I like to ask that is because, you know, you've obviously got value from these other people, and then, like you said, you thought, well, I'm sitting on so much value, why can't I make videos to help them?
Yeah.
Well, so no, I think that's really cool. What's one unique thing you've done that you think that none of my previous guests have done?
Oh dear. I think it's the amount of debt that I paid off in such a short amount of time. Am I right? Has anyone managed to do that? I did
Yeah.
£25,000 in just under 11 months.
Amazing. And was that debt from from the unit, like studying, or what was the debt from?
No, didn't even include student loans in that. So basically bad financial decisions.
Really?
This is the best way to put it. Yeah, so
What were they? What were they?
so it all
What does
started,
an accountant classify as bad financial decision?
loans and credit cards,
Okay.
basically. And it was the whole kind of young and stupid thing, where I left uni early, so I never finished uni. I went from uni straight into an apprenticeship, which is where I sort of learned all the accounting and got put through the training and stuff to be chartered.
Mhm.
And the second I left uni and went into the workplace and I started earning a fairly decent salary, like I know most apprenticeships pay peanuts, but I was on like a really decent wage. And at the time I was like, oh, I really want to do this. And I took out a loan. I wanted, basically I wanted a nose job. I don't hide the fact. And it was something that I wanted for years and years and years. I used to get bullied in school and it really affected my confidence. And I figured, you know what? I earn a decent wage now. I'm not going to wait to save the money. I'm going to take a loan out. And that kind of then became this thing that just snowballed, because not only obviously did the loan have interest, I then went, ooh, kind of fancy a new laptop and a camera, and then I just like added to the loan. And yeah, over time it just, over a few years it spiraled and just became, it never sort of became unmanageable. So I know there's loads of people who have like proper unmanageable debt which just spirals because of the interest and stuff. But I did have some times where the loan interest was crazy. It was like 19% at one point. But yeah, I started trying to do things like 0% credit cards and like transferring the balance over there and little things like that, which I didn't quite realize were as financially savvy as they really are.
Right.
But through talking to people, and that's how I thought, like, okay, I'm going to do this because you've told me this is a good thing, and learning that way. But yeah, I wish I'd never ever done that. Like, even if I'd done the initial one, that I hadn't then just piled on and on and on just because I fancied buying stuff.
Yeah, and I think that is the case for a lot of people with like credit cards, and if they buy them for that specific reason of like, oh, I'm gonna start a credit card to pay for this product. Well, I think that alone is okay, but it's like you said, it's like anything, once you do something once, you then think it's acceptable to do it again and again and again. Um, with that being said, what would you tell yourself, like if you could go back and tell yourself some advice that when you was getting out that first credit card? And by the way, the no job, I think you're more than worthy to do whatever you want within that. So please don't hold that back, but maybe then go in and buy a laptop on top of it might have been the thing. But what would you tell yourself if you could go back and sort of give yourself some words of wisdom?
There was actually a quote recently that I saw and posted on Instagram because it really resonated, and I think it sums up that kind of advice so well. And it's, don't spend money until you've earned it.
Mm,
And had I just stuck to that, like I would have never had any of those issues. And I think it's something that so many people have to remember. And again, today I posted some scary stats of like the UK debt figures in terms of households and how much debt people are in and stuff. And I think if more people realized that you should just wait until you have the money to buy stuff,
mm.
then we wouldn't be in these situations.
100%. And I think when I get to talking about this sort of stuff with people, it's almost like social media is such a good and a bad thing for that, because when you speak, and I've got nieces and nephews now, which is crazy, but like she's massive on TikTok, and then she's like, oh, I need to have this and I need to have that, and you're like, look, when we was 11 years old, like we didn't, you you didn't know there was like £300 designer Gucci bags or something like that. But I think now, because it's so accessible and it's the norm, I suppose, really, for a lot of people, because they're seeing it, right? So yeah, it just blows my mind that like these young kids are like refusing to wear anything other than like a Supreme t-shirt or something, and you're just like, this is
Yeah.
crazy. um if you had to delete all but 3 apps from your phone, what would those 3 apps be that you would keep on your phone?
That's a tough one. um, do I count things that I can use? I can still use stuff on my laptop, right? So like I
Yeah,
could
yeah,
delete Facebook and still
sure,
use it on the laptop.
for sure. Yeah, you should do that anyway, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I've been meaning to just delete Facebook overall, but let's just not get into that. Um, I would probably keep my email app. I like get so many emails, and I find it really productive to stay on top of them as I'm like pottering around doing stuff.
Mhm.
So I would keep that. I would keep my Trello app. So I use Trello for like organizing what I need to do. It's great. And probably Instagram. I would keep Instagram. I learned a long time ago how to use Instagram well, in terms of not using it to pass time in the way of like feeling bad about yourself and like
Mm.
following the accounts that like make you want to buy stuff, like you said before, or make you think like, oh god, I hate myself, or anything like that. So I actually now find Instagram quite calming and motivational. So I quite like having that as like a time passing thing.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And so, with you saying about that, like not using it just to like scroll down Instagram, because I think everyone watching this and listening has probably been guilty of it at some time. Like I literally I've got a safe behind me that when I start working, I put my phone in there because I just don't even trust myself. And the same with on the laptop as well. Have you ever heard of it's called a news feed eradicator or something, and you turn it on and it doesn't let you go, it lets you go onto Facebook, but it just shows you like motivational quotes basically.
Oh wow.
Really cool, because when you subconsciously click onto Facebook and then it just comes up this quote that in hindsight just says get back to work, don't be scrolling on Facebook basically. um
Brilliant.
but no, totally agree. Get rid of your phone when you're working. And even me, when I'm using Instagram now, like it's solely for a purpose. Like it's to message people or to make a story or something along those lines. Um, as a child, what did you want to be, and how is that differing to where you're at now?
Oh, very different. So I went through, well, if we're talking about actual child,
Yeah.
it was a vet. That was my main thing. I love animals. So I really wanted to be a vet. And at some point I realized that meant that I would have to put some animals down. And I just wasn't okay with that. Like I knew it would mostly only be for the greater good. Like if they're really suffering and stuff like that, I just can't do it. I just don't want to go down that route. So that's very different from being an accountant.
Very different. Very, very different. Let's imagine that someone's jumped onto this video on the back of typing into YouTube how to make money online, right? They've never had a client online before. They don't know where to start. What would you suggest they do in the next 30 days? If you could break it down.
Figure out what they can offer. That's the first thing. I think a lot of people jump on the bandwagon of seeing something popular and then wanting to do it. So I've been guilty of this myself. Back when I was a lot younger, back when YouTube was a place for like beauty gurus and things like that, and sort of jumping onto that trend, thinking like, oh, I want to be part of this, but actually having no real interest or knowledge in the beauty field. And I think it shows, when someone does something just for the sake of doing it versus having a proper passion. And I think that's why I've been quite successful in my channel now, because I was doing it from a place of I genuinely want to help people and I'm quite good at it. So both of those things come across. So I think the first thing would be literally figure out what is the value I can offer, what gets me excited and will actually help people, because that's how you can create content online. Is when you add value to people, they will consume your content. So that would be my number one step. And then basically figure out how you're going to do it. Do you want to be on YouTube? Do you want to be on Instagram? Do you want to have a blog? Again, that kind of caters to skills.
Mm-hmm.
Certain people, as much as they'd want to be on YouTube, just wouldn't do well on it, because speaking into a camera, it seems quite easy, but actually when you do it, it's so daunting, especially in the beginning. Obviously, as you do it more and more, you become more confident, but it is a certain type of personality that you have to sit there and talk to the camera.
Definitely.
So YouTube might not be for everyone. It might be that you do a blog. So figuring those things out is really key, and doing that initial research of what each of those things entails and how it works and everything else, because if you rush into it and make those mistakes, you'll probably be more likely to be put off and then not do it at all.
Yeah, and I think a couple of things on what you said is that I think that's why a large portion of YouTube channels fail, or I wouldn't even say fail, but I would say a large portion of people will start YouTube channels on the back of thinking like, yeah, I'm going to make loads of money from doing this, make 4 videos, realize that they don't actually give a shit about it, and then it just goes underneath and doesn't get anything else. So no, I think that is very important, that you need to be passionate about what you're creating content around, because if you're doing it for a month, a year, 2 years, and you don't get any traction, or you don't get the traction that you want, then it's going to take a lot more than just wanting to create the videos to keep creating the videos, right?
Exactly.
You mentioned it a little bit about how you create content, but how do you go about creating your content for Instagram and Facebook? Because like you said, you're now splitting it across 2 platforms. So what does your process look like for that?
So for Instagram, I try to think of like stuff I've covered in my videos and how I can put it into visuals. So that's how I basically do Instagram. And I see what people interact with as well on Instagram and what kind of content is popular. And with YouTube, there are certain videos that just do well for me generally. So I repeat them, portfolio updates of what I'm investing in and stuff like that. And everything else, it's basically through what people say in the comments, what questions are people asking me, what comes up a lot that people want answers to, and then I'll try and cover it in my videos. And sometimes I'll post on Instagram and say, what videos would you guys like to see and stuff like that. So that's basically how I come up with the topics. And if there's something that I think is important as well, that I come across, like the other day, I did a video about an ethical investing app that's just come onto the market. You know, I don't use it at the moment because I already have 4 investment accounts. But when I found out about it, I was like, this is actually a great piece of content. Like, so many people are into ethical investing.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make a video about it. So that's kind of how it all happens.
Amazing. And when it comes to building systems for your business and even the YouTube channel alone, what's maybe like a key thing that you've got implemented that someone might not know about? I know you just touched on Trello, so maybe even like some of the apps and stuff you use.
Honestly, the only thing I use is Excel and Trello. Well, and a notepad. So I do have like a to-do list notepad, which I actually don't have with me at the moment that I'm in Poland, but I generally have just an undated sort of planner, which has days of the week and blank sort of lines. And I use that for my daily to-do list. So every sort of Sunday, I will look and see, okay, on my main to-do list, which is on Trello, which has everything I just need to do. Out of that, what am I going to do this week and when? And I incorporate that with everything else that I need to do in my life. And I plan that out on a Sunday. And obviously things change. So I get to Monday, okay, I've crossed off 4 out of the 6, and then another 2 have been added. Yeah. So I then replan. But that's kind of how I do it, because I need to think at the beginning of the day, these are the things I need to do, and not have to worry about thinking what I need to do. And then on Trello, I have sort of different boards for things like, you know, these are the things I need to get done for YouTube. These are the things I need to do for my business generally. These are the things I need to do for my normal 9-to-5 job. These are the things that I've got to do just at some point. So anything that comes into my mind, like, oh, I need to call my heating company, that goes onto Trello, and then at some point I'll do it.
This is why I love Trello as well. Like, you should see some of my Trello boards. They look like my brain threw up on it. There's just so much random stuff on it. And also, like, for the guys watching and listening, if you've never used Trello before, it is an absolute key for, like what Anna was saying, if you're building a team as well. Like, I now have team members in my Trello board that if like what Anna was saying, stuff happens, stuff gets in the way, and you can't complete those tasks. Once you have those sort of systems in place and the standard way that you operate within your business, and it's all documented and tracked inside something like Trello, it becomes a lot easier to delegate and automate certain tasks, for sure.
Yeah, it's got due dates, checklists, all that kind of stuff. I used to use it with my old team. At the moment, in my new job, I don't manage anyone, but in my old job, I had a team of people, and I basically got everyone to sign up to Trello.
Well,
and
they didn't use it in there before. I find it so funny, and this is like, just like what you said, like, you started your channel for the sake of you wanting to help people. Like, that's why I started my channel, and that's why I will talk to the most random people about the most randomest things, and they're probably like what are you, why are you even bothered about it? But like, like, even a friend of mine owns like a building company, right? And I was like, do you use Trello? And they're obviously like, no, like, what's it? And they like got pen and paper out, and I'm like, honestly, I was like, I don't know how you're going to use it, but try and use Trello, like, because the same thing, like, they would go to jobs and need certain materials, and I was like, if you had that on a checklist on Trello, and they have like laborers that go to them on different things, and then he's like, no, have you got this, have you got that? And I was like, honestly, if you just put it all on Trello and take yourself out of the situation, it could seriously help you out. And the same with me, like, I use Trello to plan all of my YouTube videos and content for clients as well. So
the best thing is it's free as well.
Yeah, that's what I can't believe. It's free. And do you use Zapier?
No.
Zapier. Honestly, Trello and Zapier.
Okay.
Explosion. I'm telling you. And if you use, obviously, if you're not doing a lot of client stuff, but I use Slack as well to communicate with the team. But then if you use Trello and Slack and then Zapier like automates everything. So it's
Okay.
so just I think people might like this, to be fair. This is something that I set up with Zapier earlier. Even when someone books in a call on my Calendly, what that now does is it pulls the name of that person from Calendly and adds it as a board in my content creation Trello board. So
Oh,
now
wow.
so now for me, because I'm always like, for this episode, for example, when I finish this episode, it's going to be a Zoom file that I'm obviously then going to have to go and edit and upload to YouTube, upload to Instagram, upload to Facebook, right? But that's also one thing that I would then have to do is, once we finish this, go into Trello and make sure I add Anna's episode of the Design of Future podcast to Trello. But by having that, it just automates that. And now when I go to my Trello board, okay, I know I need to edit Anna's episode. So even little things like that, I think helps. One thing I want to jump onto, just because I know we're going to be running out of time here. You mentioned a lot about your investing. So talk to me a little bit about your investments in terms of how you got started, and if you have any tips for someone that's never done investing before.
I actually got started because I was talking to a friend and he mentioned it, and I'd been meaning to look into it for ages, and it always fascinated me. And I got him to show me the app that he was using, and it was actually one of the apps I use now. And I was like, this looks brilliant. This is so simple. And
What app is it? Sorry, don't mind.
Free Trade. So
Okay.
their kind of user interface is very much geared for beginners. So that's the app I started with. And initially it was just like ETFs and like really beginner stuff. And then obviously I did more research, I read more books and stuff like that. So I think with anyone who's a complete beginner and has no clue, I would say, start with one of these apps which are geared towards beginners because they have like zero fees and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And probably invest in things like ETFs, because that's a really safe way of investing, because you're not investing just in one company, you're investing in like loads of companies. So that would be the first thing. And if you're not comfortable doing that, then probably going for like the robo-advisor type ones, like, like Nutmeg and stuff like that, where you don't actually make the decisions of what to invest in. You just put your money in and they decide for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan of that, but I think for like a complete beginner, it's probably better if they're completely not comfortable. So yeah, basically doing that and then reading loads of finance books and watching loads of like finance YouTubers and learning and then investing more. Like I wouldn't go in and invest like thousands of pounds into companies you know nothing about, because that's just gambling.
Yeah, exactly. I think one thing I see from you was the whole copying traders on eToro. How's that gone for you?
Yeah, it's gone good for now. I'm still sort of trying it out on, so I have like a little bit invested in a copy portfolio on my real eToro portfolio. And then I also have the virtual account that I'm playing with. So far they've been doing well, but obviously the market at the moment is also doing well. So yeah, but I love it. I would never put all of my investments or the majority of my investments into copying someone else, but I think it's fun. And the way that I'm using it for my real portfolio is going into currency. So it's something I know nothing about, and I don't have the time to learn at the moment. I don't want to research currencies or how it works or anything like that. And eToro do have the option of commodities, currencies and stuff like that. So I found someone who basically does currencies and just put $200 there. And so far it's doing okay. It's not like amazing. It's not those types of Forex traders you get, advertising on Instagram going, I'm going to make you 10K if you send me $100. So it's very slow, but it is in profit, and it gives me exposure to something I wouldn't have confidence to do myself.
Amazing. Obviously this is the Designer Future podcast, so I'd love to find out, where is Anna in the next 12 months?
Well, it's all very at the moment. dependent on what happens with the whole situation in the world. I don't know if we're allowed to say the name here. I know on YouTube we can't say it, so I'm not going to say it, but everyone knows what we're talking about. And hopefully it will be starting to build my house here in Poland, and actually looking at maybe potentially going full-time on like the Pandaboss brand. That's my vision if everything goes well. But you know, if we're still here in 12 months time with everything going on, then probably not, but we'll see how it goes. But my hope is to move more and more towards sort of full-time on the brand, because I love it and it's just so much more exciting than being an accountant.
Awesome. I love it. And sorry, just one thing before I let you go. You mentioned finance books. Obviously, being an accountant, obviously studying finance day in, day out. What would be some of the good resources for someone that is interested in what you've been saying? Obviously, firstly, guys, I'm going to leave Anna's link for her YouTube below. Like, she's got some amazing content when it comes to financial literacy. But is there any books or books or videos that aren't your own? I know you mentioned previous channels and stuff, but is there anything that stands out to you in terms of financial literacy that you would tell everyone to go and read?
So there are probably 2 books that I would recommend generally. There's a whole load that I've got, well, it's not that many, but more than 2 I have on my list of recommendations that you can have a look at. But there's 2 that I just remember off the top of my head that I would recommend to anyone. One is called The Coffee House Investor, and that is a really easy read, and it's written really well, and it talks about, you know, how everyday people can and should be investing. So that one was really good. And then the second one I'm going to recommend is probably the driest book you'll ever read in your life, and you'll hate me for recommending it, but you will learn so much. And that's The Intelligent Investor. It's such a good book. And when I say good, I mean informative, because I've not even finished it yet. I'm most of the way there, but it's painful to read because it's so dry, and everyone I've spoken to says the same thing. And I remember posting an Instagram story about it, and so many people who work in finance replied going, "Oh, such a good book, but so boring." I know. So yeah, those 2 I think are the 2 that I would really recommend, and then all the others that I'd still recommend, but maybe not like straight away. I can send you a list too.
Definitely. I'll include that list below as well. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, guys, I'm going to leave Anna's link for her channel below. Definitely go check it out and give her a subscribe. And I'll see you in the next episode. Take care, guys. Peace.
Thank you.
Hollywood 6.